the Russo brothers. Anthony and Joe Russo have directed some of the biggest movies of all time, with their film Avengers Endgame coming in second place, just behind James Cameron's Avatar. But that hasn't made it any easier to get their sci-fi adventure film, The Electric State, out into the world. The project was first announced back in 2017 and experienced multiple ups, downs, and behind-the-scenes shakeups on its way to production, with filming beginning in 2022 and wrapping in early 2023. Reshoots followed in 2024. Now, it looks like The Electric State might finally be ready to make its way out into the world. So we figure it was time to put together a list of everything we know about The Electric State.
Showtime, a-holes!
The story of this film begins in July of 2017, when Free League launched a Kickstarter campaign to raise funds for a new narrative art book from acclaimed artist and author Simon Stålenhag, a book called The Electric State. Through a Facebook post, this book caught the attention of screenwriters Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, who have worked with the Russo brothers on Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Captain America: Civil War, Avengers: Infinity War, Avengers: Endgame, and The Gray Man. McFeely is continuing the collaboration on the upcoming films Avengers: Doomsday and Avengers: Secret Wars, and they weren't the only ones who became interested in it. At least 4 studios and numerous producers and directors were pursuing the adaptation rights, kicking off a heated bidding war that the Russo brothers ended up winning. In December of 2017, it was announced that Russos would be producing a film adaptation of The Electric State, with the script being written by Marcus and McFeely. Stålenhag's book had the following description: in late 1997, a runaway teenager and her yellow toy robot travel west through a strange USA, where the ruins of gigantic battle drones litter the countryside, heaped together with the discarded trash of a high-tech consumerist society in decline. As their car approaches the edge of the continent, the world outside the window seems to be unraveling even faster, as if somewhere beyond the horizon, the hollow core of civilization has finally caved in. Angela Russo-Otstad, the creative chief for the Russo Brothers production company AGBO, and she also happens to be their sister, told The Hollywood Reporter that the film is a, quote, really interesting exploration of a world where service robots live alongside humans. Within their time performing specific services for humans, the robots start to realize that they may want something more than the purpose they were made for, and the humans begin to fear this. So eventually a conflict plays out. There's a war between the humans and the robots, and the humans leverage technology to win, and they take all of the robots and banish them into an exclusion zone in the middle of a desert wasteland in the center of the US. But it's a global conflict as well, so there are other stories and narratives that can play out in different countries around the world, but we witness the US story in this film. End quote. The writers are said to have, quote, built out a really rich mythology. There was an existing mythology in the book, but they expanded upon it. End quote. Russo-Otstad also mentioned that the robots have a real nostalgia to them.
Yo, I tell you, the things that fall off me, it's embarrassing.
When the Russos first secured the rights to Stålenhag's book, they were too busy working on Avengers: Infinity War and Avengers: Endgame to direct the film themselves, so they tapped Andy Muschietti, who had just had massive success with the first It movie, to take the helm. But Muschietti had to make It Chapter 2 first, and by the time he was finished with that Stephen King adaptation, he had been offered the chance to direct The Flash for Warner Brothers in DC. So while he focused on making a superhero movie of his own, the Russos decided they would direct The Electric State after all. They just had to get the action thriller The Gray Man made for Netflix first. This is why it took 5 years for The Electric State to start filming. All of the directors that have been attached to it were too busy to make it. In addition to directing the film, the Russos produced it with Mike LaRocca, Chris Castaldi, and Patrick Newell. Marcus and McFeely serve as executive producers, with Russo-Otstad, Jake Otts, Jeff Haley, and Jeff Ford.
Before we continue with our video, here's a reminder to click the Store tab on any of our JoBlo channels and browse our collection of the latest and freshest designs in our merch store. Go get you some.
Millie Bobby Brown of Stranger Things signed on to star in the film at the end of 2020, taking on the role of the teenager mentioned in the book description. She's said to be a young woman traveling across the country after a civil war between humanity and the robots that once served them spirals out of control. While searching for her missing brother, Brown's character meets a mysterious smuggler. The smuggler is played by Chris Pratt. Giancarlo Esposito plays an antagonist called the Marshal, who operates a robotic drone remotely and is tasked with hunting down the robots traveling with Brown's character on her quest. Ke Huy Quan plays a doctor Brown's character is desperate to find. Kwan's Everything Everywhere All at Once co-star Michelle Yeoh was once attached to play the character, but had to drop out due to scheduling issues. Anthony Mackie and Billy Bob Thornton provide the voices for robot characters. Mackie's robot is a sidekick to the smuggler played by Pratt, while Thornton's robot is a key figure in the Civil War. Stanley Tucci, Brian Cox, Martin Kleba, Woody Norman, Jenny Slate, and Jason Alexander are also in the cast. Woody Harrelson plays a robot that was inspired by Mr. Peanut. Russo Ottstott said, quote, "I remember when we had to approach Hormel to ask permission to do this. We were like, it has to be Mr. Peanut. We have to make this work. And fortunately, it did work out." End quote.
I haven't cried like that since Titanic.
The Electric State was set up at Universal in 2020, by which time Muschietti had stepped back into an executive producer role while the Russos took the helm. The plan was for the film to get a theatrical release, but then Universal passed it over to Netflix, where the project was overseen by Nick Nesbitt. So while it may end up getting some theatrical play, this is going to primarily be a streaming release. The film is expected to start streaming on Netflix sometime in March of 2025. In the build-up to the release, the Motion Picture Association Ratings Board has revealed that they've given the film a PG-13 rating for sci-fi, violence and action, language, and some thematic material. And that's everything we know about The Electric State at this time. Are you looking forward to this film? Let us know by leaving a comment below.
Just stick with me, kid. I know this town like the back of my hand. Hey, that's new.